This is part 2 of my Hereditary thoughts and theories. Now this is after I've had a chance to rewatch the movie, after I've had a chance to read every one of your guys' comments on your thoughts and your theories and your speculation and your stuff on my theories on my previous video. Now if you haven't seen my previous video, you can watch it. It's right here, just look it up. Now this isn't going to be a retread of that video and all the points that I hit on that video. This is going to be about the stuff that I missed out on and I picked up on it the second time around after rewatching the movie, after watching the interviews with Ari Aster, after reading your guys' comments. Oh, and I also just want to say thanks to everyone who watched that previous Hereditary video. It's blown up more than any of my other videos ever have. So thanks for all the views, the likes, the comments, and all the speculation, everything. It's been a joy to read and watch over the weekend. But anyways, let's jump right into Hereditary, Satanic Cults, King Payment, and Grandma Ellen DeGeneres. So the first thing I took note of this time around is that the film opens up showing the treehouse, and then the camera pans to the miniatures that Annie makes, and then it slowly zooms into the miniatures and then into the room, and then we're inside of Peter's room, and we see Peter, his dad, walk into the room, and he gets up. And I found this fascinating because if you think about it, when Annie's making her miniatures, she's creating these little characters, these little puppets, moving them around and stuff, and creating these walls, and she's controlling this atmosphere, this environment, and she's making the people in them do what they want to do. And that's from Annie's perspective down on her miniatures. This is showing that there's this God's eye view, there's this third-party angle watching all these characters in this house, and this house is basically a game, and there's someone controlling it. Just like Annie controls her miniatures, there's someone watching all of this and controlling it. Now, who is that person? Grandma Ellen, the Satanic Cult, and King Payment. There's a puppet master behind this entire game, and I'm going to talk about how this puppet master made me realize this time around that every event in the film is almost inevitable because there is someone else, a bigger, larger force at power here controlling everything, and everything is already preordained and everything is inherited. Like the title Hereditary, it all started with Grandma Ellen and it has been passed down, and this family has been doomed since the start. It's passed down generations. It all started with her, and every generation since then was screwed because she made a pact with the devil, she made a pact with King Payment, and they're at play now. These people aren't in control of their own lives. There's someone else looking down on them, and they're playing them like puppets. Now, the first time I watched the film, my first thoughts and theories video, I said that I thought after Charlie died and was kind of Peter's fault, I thought that this cult and Payment was trying to have revenge on Peter for killing Charlie, who was sort of their prodigy, and a lot of you guys told me that's not the case, and I rewatched it and I realized I was wrong. Rewatching it this time around, I realized everything was so perfectly set up and tight, and all that was meant to happen. Charlie was meant to die. Her death was orchestrated by this cult, by Payment, by Grandma Ellen, whoever was at charge. Now, to understand all this, we got to go back to Grandma Ellen, and it all starts with Grandma Ellen. Why does Grandma Ellen want to conjure Payment? That's the first thing we got to ask. Why does she want to create this 8th king of hell and, you know, manifest this demonic spirit? Why did she make a pact with this? Well, we see in the little note, and when Annie, after the funeral, when Annie goes into that room and she's looking through her grandma's things, and she finds that letter from her, and she's reading the letter, and it says, like, I apologize for, you know, everything that's happened to you in your life, but don't forget, she said something like, our sacrifice will pale in comparison to our rewards in the afterlife. And we see that image in the end of the person who, you know, helped King Payment out, and they're sitting on a pile of gold. So she's basically saying, you know, life right now might suck and we're gonna sacrifice our heads and everything, but in the end, Payment is gonna make it pay off. So that was the grandma's ultimate motivation. She believed in that. She was like, I'm gonna make a deal with this guy and he is gonna set me up for life. It's just like the Paranormal Activity movies. Hereditary is much like the first 3 Paranormal Activities. Afterwards, those movies went downhill, but I argue those first 3 Paranormal Activity movies are pretty good. And we learned that the grandma made this deal, and there was the demon Toby, and they had to get the firstborn son, much like this. Now, King Payment, we learn in the movie, King Payment is a man, and he requires a male body to manifest. Now, this is why the scene when Annie first goes to the grief counseling thing where they're all sitting in a circle, that is one of the most crucial scenes in the movie that you have to listen to. Now, in that scene, we learn a bit of Annie's tragic upbringing. We learn her dad died, he starved himself to death, but what's most important is we learn Annie had a brother, and Annie's brother killed himself. She said that he was schizophrenic and believed that his mother was putting people inside of him, so he killed him. Now, when the first time I heard that, I was like, no, that sounds schizophrenic to me. That sounds like a crazy person. No wonder he killed himself. After you finish the movie, you go back and you rewatch that, and you realize, oh my God, see, this was Grandma Ellen, and Payment's just like, hey lady, just get me, you know, a male body from your bloodline, get me a son so I could get in there, and then we'll make this happen, girl. And Grandma Ellen was like, well, shucks, I have a son right here, let's get to it. And so Grandma Ellen starts doing the whole process with her son, starts trying to give him the king payment, and then her son is literally like, you're trying to put somebody inside of me, and hangs himself. And that's what Annie meant. Annie just didn't realize what Grandma Ellen was really trying to do. She really was trying to put someone inside of him. He wasn't schizophrenic. Well, he might have been after all the torture he endured, but still. So son kills himself. Now Grandma Ellen's like, well, I'm screwed, that was my only son. And then Annie, her daughter, happens to have a son, Peter, and Grandma Ellen is like, this is perfect. Now begs the question, because Annie says that she didn't let Grandma Ellen anywhere near her son. Why? Now we gotta ask, did Annie know what Grandma Ellen was doing? Yes and no. Annie knew that Grandma Ellen was into some weird stuff. And she doesn't seem to believe in this type of stuff because she's pretty freaked out at the seance and everything. But she knows her mom was into weird stuff. That's why she's not surprised when she's looking through her mom's stuff. She's seeing books on spiritualism and projection and all this weird demonology stuff that I'm not going to pretend to understand. Annie's not surprised because she knows her mom's into this stuff. This is why when she looks into her mom's room and she sees this triangle like hex sacrificing shape on the floor, she's just like, lock this door, husband, you know, why is my mom's stuff on the floor, you know, all crazy. She knew her mom was into some weird stuff, and that's why she's like, I'm not letting you near my son. But then she had a daughter, and she literally says in that grief counseling, she's like, I gave my daughter to her, and she sunk her teeth into him. She literally gave Charlie to her because the grandma was like, well, I'm getting old, you know, we gotta make this payment thing happen quick, right, Payment? And Payment's like, yeah, let's do it. And she's like, well, she won't let me have Peter, so we gotta put up with the girl for now. And he's like, all right, well, let's get Charlie then. So Grandma Ellen starts manifesting Payment inside of Charlie from birth. That is why Grandma Ellen breastfeeds Charlie and feeds Charlie and spends all her time with Charlie and says, I wish you were a boy, because she wanted a boy to create Payment into. So Payment was living inside of Charlie her entire life since, you know, she was a baby. I don't believe Charlie knew this, but there were two people. There was Charlie and Payment both living inside of that body, and that's why Charlie's a little weird. That's why she's cutting off bird heads and stuff like that, and that's why she's clucking through that cluck. And someone actually commented on my video, fascinating theory, because I didn't have an explanation for that cluck, but King Payment rides a camel, and someone said that cluck is maybe the sound of when Payment walks on his camel, the camel's hoof makes on the ground. That's maybe what Charlie's doing. That was a fascinating theory someone commented on my last video, and maybe it's true, I don't know. So now Grandma Ellen has died, and now is the time that she's in the afterlife to strike and go for the boy. It is this fuse with Charlie and Payment in that body is no longer working. Payment needs a male body, and it's time to go for Peter. It's time to strike, and it's time to get Payment out of Charlie's body. It's time to kill Charlie, split this family apart, turn them all against each other, and then strike on the most vulnerable person in the family, who is Peter, the young boy who's just scared, and your heart breaks for him with all the trauma he has to endure in this film. Now we need to understand Payment's powers. Now Payment's powers, some of them, because Payment has noted to have many powers, but some of them that we see him use in this film: knowledge of past and future events. Put a pin in that, we'll get back to that. Creating visions, we see him do that often through the film. We see these characters have awful visions, nightmares of ants, getting their heads torn off, getting kids set on fire, tons of stuff. Reanimating the dead, which we see at the end of the film when we have headless corpses bowing down to King Payment. And flight, which we see in some of the most terrifying scenes I've ever seen in a horror movie, when Annie is flying through the house, hiding in corners, kills me both times I've seen it. It's just horrifying. And when she runs at Peter, my god. Okay, so knowledge of past and future events is how they killed Charlie. Charlie goes to this party. We see them drive past the pole. The pole has the mark of payment on it. Coming back, Peter's driving. The whole thing was set up. She's choking on nuts that happen to be in a cake. The EpiPen isn't in the car. They're driving home, and then there just happens to be a dead deer carcass in the road. He swerves, hits her face on that pole that had the mark of payment on it. Her head goes tumbling off, and a couple ants snack on it. Now Charlie's dead, and now Payman needs a new body to manifest himself into, and that is Peter. This is what sets the course of the events through the rest of the film. It's much like The Witch. In The Witch, Black Phillip is just fanning the flames of a family that is just tearing itself apart. Black Phillip, the witch, they took the baby, and that just sent the family into chaos of mistrust and hatred towards each other, and it ripped the family apart. And Black Phillip didn't have to do much work after that. And much like this film, Payman kills Charlie, or the cult, Grandma Ellen, whoever, the whole gang. You know, it's a group effort, you know, and it was premeditated. First degree, they should go to jail. Now they kill Charlie, and that splits the whole family apart. This turns the son against the mother, and the mother against the husband, and it splits the three apart, making Peter extra vulnerable. And that is when they get to work. Now, before I get to the end, I want to get to something that I don't have an explanation for, but you guys had so many theories on my last video, so I want to see if you guys have an explanation for this. Birds. I've looked up to see, read all over the internet to see if King Payman had any ties to birds as pets or anything, or birds in demonology. I've done so much research and I can't find anything on birds. But birds play a factor in this movie. The treehouse itself looks like a birdhouse. Second, let's not forget that the bird crashes into the schoolroom window, and then Charlie cuts the bird's head off and collects it. And then we see her drawing of a bird wearing a crown that is ultimately King Payman's crown that's on her head corpse at the end of the movie. And then there's a bird cage. Literally, we see a dead corpse fly up into the treehouse like a bird would fly into a bird cage, and then in that treehouse, birdhouse, we have a bird cage right next to the stand of King Payman, and there's a bird in it. And I just want to know, do you guys have any theories on the birds and what their meaning is in this film? Because I can't figure it out. I've done research, I can't figure it out. The bird is the first thing beheaded in this whole film. Now, there's a lot of things beheaded. That seems to be what's sacrificed in this film. Now, the bird is beheaded. When Grandma Ellen's body is dug up, it's beheaded. Annie beheads herself when she's like, she beheads herself. Charlie smashes her face into a pole and beheads herself. I don't know why I laughed when I said that. Someone's trying to pull Peter's head off, so I guess the way to get into hell and become a servant of Payman is to pay your debt in head. You rip your head off, you give it to him, that's his collection. Try to spot Kevin Smith in this video. Okay, so we're wrapping this up after the seance where Joan tricks Annie into conjuring this demon. We don't know if it's Payman. We see Charlie possesses her. They're one and the same, and that is when Annie screwed up and let this demon into her house. And I think it's only 2 days after that where everybody ends up dying and Peter gets taken. And so wrapping it up now, we see when Annie throws the book into the fire, it kills the husband, and right there she's screaming for a little bit, and then a light hits her, and that's when she's been taken over. And from that moment on, she's a part of the witch cult. Peter tries to fight it off, but he can't. But Peter jumps out the window when he sees a bunch of naked old people, and then the light enters him, and that is Payman / Charlie. Now you gotta remember, they were fused together, so that's why when he's up in the treehouse, they say, Charlie, you are now Payman. Because those two fused together, they grew up together. I mean, they were together for 13 years. And then they put the crown on him, and they're all worshiping him. Hail Payman, hail Payman. And it ends and cuts to black. Beautiful movie. I love Hereditary so much. It's one of my favorite horror movies in years. I think it's just brilliantly constructed. And the thing is, even after seeing it 2 times and now making 2 videos about it, I still feel like there's so much more. I feel like I could watch it a 3rd time and make a 3rd video about it. And just, I feel like I could talk about this movie endlessly and theorize on this movie endlessly, and everyone could speculate. So let me know what you guys think on my theories. What are your own on this stuff? Do you have a bird theory? I want someone to solve the bird crisis here. What is up with birds in this movie? I don't know. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I guess now you gotta tap a stupid bell or something, because the subscribe button, YouTube's just dumb. Also, let me know if you would like to see a thoughts and theories on any other horror movies. I'm thinking about doing one on It Follows. That might be my next one, but if you have any that you want to see, just like a 15-minute video where I go in depth on the symbolism and metaphors and just explore a movie, let me know which one you want to do. It Follows will be done eventually, and maybe also The Witch, but let me know if you have any others. Just throw out some ideas out there. But thanks for watching, and someone figure out the bird thing for me. I need to know. Goodbye.